In the immediate aftermath of an extreme weather event occurring, people always ask the question, is climate change to blame? We founded World Weather Attribution to answer that question based on scientific evidence. This one does not include the event. Weather attribution is a relatively new field of science that basically brings together weather observation and meteorology and climate science and really answers the question, what is the cause of an event happening? I'm Dr. Friederike Otto. I'm a senior lecturer at the Grantham Institute at Imperial College London, and I am a co-founder of the World Weather Attribution Initiative, which I'm also leading. Our burning of fossil fuels for the last decades and century has led to the world overall getting warmer, and that had a profound effect on weather around the world. So every heat wave that is happening today has been made more likely, more intense and longer because of climate change. But we also see changes in other weather events. Heavy rainfall has become more intense in many parts of the world. We see more intense droughts, or at least the impacts of droughts on agriculture are worse as they would have been without climate change because of the increase in temperature. And of course, that doesn't affect just the weather, but our societies are only adapted to a very small range of possible weather, and we are outside this range now, and therefore the impacts that these changes have are that people lose their lives, their livelihoods across the world, not just in the global south, but everywhere in the world. So the kind of extreme weather events that we would want to study with World Weather Attribution are very frequent. So we meet every Monday with our team and look at the events that have happened, and there are many more events happening than we can study, and we are aiming to look at about 20 per year. So the kind of thing we are looking at are events like, for example, the Pacific Northwest heat wave that hit the US and Canada in 2021, where we found this event would have basically been impossible without climate change. Another event that has not been talked about much in the global media was extreme flooding in Nigeria and around the Niger Delta more widely that happened in 2022, where we also found that climate change made this event 80 times more likely, which is a huge change for a rainfall event. So with our core team, we decide whether we can do a study based on whether we have enough manpower available, whether we have data and climate models, at least in principle, that are able to simulate the type of event, whether we have the ability to make contact with people in the region. And also we try to look at, is it a kind of event in a region where we have already done many studies? If yes, we might give that a lower priority, but if it's in a region where not many studies have been done, we will definitely try to do it. So once we have made contact with the people in country, we decide on how to define the event. And then based on how complex the weather event is that led to the impacts, we then decide on the timeline. So if it's a heat wave that is relatively straightforward, or a heavy rainfall event, we try and finish the study within a week. If it's something more complex like a drought or maybe a less straightforward rainfall event, then it might take us a few weeks, but we really aim to be as fast as possible so that our evidence can still feed into the public discussion that is happening about the event. So what we are aiming to do with each of these studies is to provide, on the one hand, an answer of what's the role of climate change. So something like, this event has been made 80 times more likely because of climate change. And on the other hand, information on who has been most affected and why. So who is hit by this weather event and why, and how were they affected, and also what can be done to prevent these people being affected next time. So once we finish a study, we obviously can't send it to peer review and wait for 2 years until the review process is over before publicizing the events. We publicize them straight away. So we publish a scientific report that has all the information that a scientific paper has, On our website, we write a summary, we write a press release, and we do a press briefing. And in many cases, we then send the scientific report a few weeks after to peer review so that it will become a peer-reviewed paper down the line. It's important to have attribution studies because these studies show us how climate change manifests in our daily lives, in our daily experiences, not just climate scientists, but everyone. And also, because we have an assessment on the vulnerability, we can learn from these studies how to better prevent impacts to be not as dramatic for future events.